Okay. Well, Will, if you're ready, I am. So let's pop it on over. Thank you, everyone, for joining. My name is Ishmael. I am in sales development here over at Threekit. I'm going to be leading you all through the front half of this demo. Specifically, we're chatting about visual configuration and manufacturing. I'm going to be covering the configuration part of that first, and then we'll jump into the visuals. And then that's where Will Thompson, our demo engineer here, is going to take over and show you a pretty robust demo, actually. So with that, Will, let's flip it over to the next slide. So why are we talking about visual configuration with manufacturing? Well, two things I wanted to touch base on that's going to help understand why we are here. First one being, in a recent survey, they found that 61% of B2B buyers have already made a decision before contacting a sales rep. Information is readily available through online through multiple different sources online, which is great. It empowers the buyer. But where that really falters is, the actual sales process. Because, I also want to point out that in that same survey, they said that close to 70% of B2B buyers don't even want a salesperson to be their primary source of information. So Will, if you can pop it on over to the next slide, thank you. So let's take a look at the actual, what the typical B2B sales process looks like. This is normal. Products are very complex. There's going to be multiple divisions involved in a sale, and it's difficult to communicate, between each division to complete that sale. So this is why we end up with sales processes similar to this you see on your screen. It's a long process. It's drawn out. There's a lot of back and forth that happens. But more importantly, there's a ton of wasted resources, such as utilizing, 3D artists, designers to create sketches and, then have to go back and forth with your customers. But CPQ, configure price quote, has been very helpful in, fulfilling correct orders and allowing customers to fill out forms online and create their products, offering up some sort of self-service. But there's still one major aspect missing. Will, if you can flip it on over. Visuals. We still have to realize and remember that 83% of buyers, they point towards visualization as their most influential factor in their purchase. So I'm going to touch on that again too. We kind of have, solutions for this with 3D modelers or designers, but the problem with that is we don't need to waste their time or our resources in having them create those sketches and again go through that back and forth process. Especially with COVID-19, we have to realize that our salespeople, one of the main factors in a purchase to help put your customer at ease, they're all grounded right now. And who knows what the state of travel is going to look like. So we're going to have to come up with ways and ideas to put something in front of your customer to help create some more ease during that buying process, buying cycle. And this is where Threekit comes in. We are a powerful visualization engine that will take all of the rules and logic and be able to provide 3D visuals for your customer in real time. It's all web-based and can be integrated to your CPQ system or e-commerce platform for more accurate order details. Plus, multiple steps are going to be eliminated by being able to produce an accurate representation in real time, display an accurate quote, and create an output form to go to your team and actually begin that order. What we like to say is you're going to be visually unlocking your product catalog. So with that, Will, I'm going to turn it over to you and let's get into the nuts and bolts.
All right, thank you, Ishmael. Let me pull up my demo here and we will get started. Great. So it's great to be here today. My name is Will Thompson. I am a member of the solution engineering team here at Threekit. I'm going to show you a couple things here today mainly how Threekit can help with complex visual configurations. We're going to see some true parametric configuration. We'll see some options that are contingent on other rules. There are a lot of features to this demo, so if there's anything that anybody may want to see in more detail, or if you have any questions while we're going through this, feel free to unmute yourself and just ask away. Otherwise, we will open it up for questions at the end. So with that, I will get started. So this demo, actually this is a live implementation now, so if you look up Sapphire Balconies, you can find it. But what they do is they create rapid install rigid balconies. So their end user is typically an architect or an architect who works with a builder. So Sapphire came to us. They actually already had a configuration tool in place, but it wasn't meeting all their needs. So we partnered with them for a longer term project, and this is the final result. So let's dive right in. The first thing I want to note is here on the left, you can see that we have a 4-step configurator. So we'll start with our connection, then we'll go on to the actual balcony design. We'll touch on the railings before we adjust some colors here. Down at the bottom, you can see a couple things here. I'll show you the anchor view in a moment. And we'll also get into the interior view as well. So a lot going on here on this configurator. The first thing I want to show you is this anchor view. We're only going to be in this view for a moment, but what I wanted to show you was the slab thickness. This is the first step in our configurator. So we will just determine how thick this connection is to the balcony. We'll hop back in the anchor view in a moment, but I just wanted to show you that visual first step before we move on to our actual balcony design. So as you can see here, there are a lot of options available to us while we build our new custom balcony. A lot of angles, a lot of different options you can choose here. I'll go with a simple rectangle for now. And then we'll move on to our size. Our projection is how far the balcony is going to come off of the wall of the building, the facade. And the width, obviously, is the width of the balcony. So something to note here is that balconies of a certain width will be designated as multiple balconies. So I'll give you an example of that now. Like I said, there are a lot of rules contingent on other rules. So you can see our doors multiplied when we hit that certain width. So we'll hop back to our anchor view because this is another moment where this will paint a bigger picture. What I've shown you so far, they're visual representations of a balcony. I haven't shown you anything really that would designate as a really, technical specification. One of the great features of this configurator is that the output, there is a really technical PDF, and that can start a manufacturing process or a purchasing process. It can go a lot of different ways. So now that we're back at the anchors, you can see our balcony has 2. As I adjust the width or the projection of this balcony, you'll see the number of those, the number and the placement of these anchors will adjust. So if we get some width going on, you can see we've increased. And if we go farther out, we'll get some more anchors as well. These are true anchors that are required to manufacture this balcony. So these are really technical portions of this configurator. We'll hop back to our normal view for now. The next step I wanted to touch on is the drainage. This is a very small visual change, but in the manufacturing process, it can make a pretty big difference. As you can see, the slant of our balcony is gonna either go to the front or to the rear, depending on where we want our water to drain. I'll stick to the front for now. And finally, the decking. This is a fire class decking. There's no visual change here. I'll stick with Class A, but the region that this is sold in, this is a requirement. So no visual changes there, just something for the fire codes. Awesome. So moving on. Now, before we configure our railings here, let's hop into the interior view. All the options that we were playing with earlier are available to us in the interior view. There's nothing that will be unavailable to us. It's just another way that we can see what this balcony may look like. It's something that I'm noticing from the inside. The glass is a great look, but I don't get a whole lot of privacy, so I might obscure that glass before going back to the exterior to see what the rest of my balcony will look like. So I think I'll give myself some vertical bars on the edges here, just to paint a picture of what this balcony can look like before we move on. So now we can get to the color. You can do everything from the deck color to the actual facade of the building, which could change depending on where this building will go. So I'll keep the brick for now, but I'll go with a dusty gray floor. And I might keep the light gray exterior. So this is our completed balcony now. That was a lot of steps. I know there's a lot going on in this configurator, but there are a couple other things I wanted to show you. What happens after we've configured this product. Here we have our summary, which just lists out everything that we've configured. And like Ishmael said, there's a big human element. There was a big human element, at least for Sapphire balconies, prior to this configurator. There's a lot of options here. And we have them all listed out now. So if I noticed, oh, the right railing should not be 1100 millimeters, maybe it should be 12 or 1300, I can check that out now. But better yet, I can save and download this configuration and email it to myself or my partners or who I'm building this for. So let's see what that email looks like. This may look familiar. Our balcony may look a little bit different. I pre-configured this email just for the sake of time, but you can see our configured balcony here with some dynamic screenshots and a couple links here as well. So let's go to that dynamic PDF, which will give us some more information than what's here in this email, which is just a broad snapshot. So here's our proposal PDF. This is roughly a 25-page document with a lot of dynamic elements. So forgive my quick scrolling, but I'll scroll through fairly quickly just to get to some dynamic elements. So here's our final design. Scrolling through, we have our balcony configuration, rigidity considerations, just dependent on what options we've put in. Our connection summary, how many anchors we have, where they're placed, how big of a load this balcony can take, everything from fire codes, child safety, even those drainage considerations that I touched on earlier. You can see that the water flows to the front of this balcony and not to the rear. So what does this mean for a B2B sales process? Well, rather than me reaching out to a salesperson and telling them I want see-through glass on my balcony and glass on my railings, take a couple days to get that visual representation done, sent back to me before I realized, oh, you know what, I did want that obscure glass. There was not enough privacy for me in my apartment from this balcony. There are just a lot of considerations, and having this technical tool that can build this for you and show you what it looks like is a huge improvement from processes of the past. So that was a lot, I know, but what we touched on was some parametric configuration. There was a lot of complex rules and logic on this configurator, and there were some dynamically generated outputs as well. So these forms can ready your supply chain or your customer, whatever your next steps are. These outputs can be tailored to whatever use that will be. So with that, I'll take a breath and give my voice a rest, hand it back to Ishmael.
Thank you, Will. Appreciate that. And one thing I'd like to cover there is this is all customer facing too. So this is that opportunity for you to allow your buyer to, you would provide your buyer with a self-serviced, process throughout, giving them the confidence they need and really cut that overall B2B buying cycle down from what could be potentially weeks or months to even a couple of days. So with that, let's touch a little bit on who we are over here at Threekit. Threekit, our software has been around since the mid-2000s, and we got our start in the Hollywood space by providing high-quality visuals and 3D renders for multiple box office films, such as The Avengers, Game of Thrones. But then in 2016, a shift began to happen within e-commerce where 3D started to take off specifically, and this trend of visuals. Ben Houston, our founder and now CTO, caught on to that trend, and he transitioned from providing those same cutting edge visuals for Hollywood films over to e-commerce. And then with that, in 2019, we had our first seed round where we brought in a couple of key players from both what was known as Steel Brick and what's now known as Salesforce CPQ. So not only do we understand visuals, we also do understand complex rules and logic. So on our next slide, we're going to see a couple of the partners who trust in us being the visualization experts. A couple to point out here, you're going to see Steelcase and Herman Miller, both really the top 5 contract furniture manufacturers in North America. But then also we've got Boston Tech, who creates highly configurable and complex workstations for large brands such as LL Bean. So you're not going to be alone in this journey. We're here to help you throughout. But with that, I'd like to open up the floor for any questions. So feel free to unmute yourself and or send it away in the chat. Okay, looks like we don't have any questions. I'll be shooting over an email so everyone will have my contact information. So with that, we do appreciate your time and looking forward to chatting soon. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.